Okay, we've got a Holden Rodeo built in 1995. You can see the handbrake, it's not working. That's because of a busted rear drum handbrake cable. The other one's been removed, and that just runs, it ran from there underneath, just under the cab. And that's the joiner there, and the other end just slits, beg pardon, just slots in there. And that's the same as that type. That's the old cable there, and that's the new one. So the old cable's lined up with the new one. So that's got that type of, that's the original end on it, that block type, and this one's got a hexagon type lock-in. Those ends are the same. It's got a different type of end on it, and that's the original end. It's just a square, and I think this one's about 10 millimeters shorter. The original's 10 millimeters shorter. Okay, it's not actually as complicated as it looks. You've got the two shoes. These pins hold the shoes in place. You just push them in and twist them to unlock them. You've got two springs on top, one there and one behind. And you've got this spacer, and that's got an automatic tension device on it, and that's the arm there, and that goes in, and this has got a round notched out section, this spacer here, and it just ratchets and tightens the spacer as needed. And under here you've got one spring, so that's it there, and that runs from there to there, so across from one shoe to the other, and that's a permanent spacer there. And the bottoms of the shoes notch into that. And they notch into that hydraulic activator there, and that widens out and spreads the shoes out. So that's the tops of the shoes, that's the bottoms of the shoes. Got your two springs there and your spacer. And one retaining spring on the bottom. So first of all, I'll get this large spring off just by grabbing it with the pliers and pulling it out and around. Then I'll probably get the bottom spring off, and then just take it from there and then release the shoes. Okay, now the small spring behind. Now the shoes have got a retaining clip here, so I'll just grab it from behind. It goes right to the outside of the body, and I just push it in and turn it. Okay, now behind the brake drum, there's a hole just down there. If I can get some light, yeah, there it is. And I'll poke the cable through there, and it'll come out through down there. And that's the lever there for the handbrake cable. So this pulls the handbrake cable, pulls this out, and it pulls the drum onto the cylinder. Okay, the cable's now on the body of the car, and that's been pushed through there. It was very easy. I just pushed it through and it clipped in, just snapped in behind. So yeah, there it is there, sticking out. So I've just got to put that through this area here, and that just sort of drops in and locks in under there, and then put the shoe back on and connect the rest. So that's running, it runs up along and then through that hole there, and that comes out there. Then there's a retaining sort of snapping lock that slips up under there to keep it there. So the hardest part is, as you put the shoe back on, is this spacer here and this spring behind, to sort of line it up and get it all back on. Okay, so there's a cable through the arm of the shoe. Now I'll just get it and flip it around, and I'll put it on the drum frame. And I think what I did last time was I got this small spring. I put that on first, and then just use this to lock the rest in. Okay, so the shoe's in place, and the spring's also in place, and the spacer. So there's a spring being clipped around there, and there's the right hand side of the spacer. You might be able to just make out there. Try and get a better shot. So that's it there. And now this arm, small arm here, is that's the ratchet there that sits around that. Just try and get it focused. There's a round thing in there, and that just levers up on that and tightens up the drum brakes as needed. Okay, so with this small adjusting lever here, that you can just remove that. So with this spacer bit, there has to be a notch that has to be facing out, and that's what the spacer sits into. So just sits in there like that. Okay, so at this stage, the shoe's on, the shoe holder's been put into place, and this still moves up and down a little bit, but it's central to the outside there, and the shoe's sitting in this bottom retainer. I've got to put the bottom spring on, and it's sitting in the top. With this job, I highly recommend that you take lots and lots of photos, lots of pictures, and plenty of documentation, because there's a fair few parts to this to a drum brake. Some drum brakes have a different tightening mechanism and different spring setups. This one, as I said, you've got your spreader that spreads apart. When you put your foot on the brakes, you've got a rear spring to hold the shoes. You've got a front spring that runs from there to this swiveling automatic tightener. And it's got a hole just there, and the spring runs from there to there. It's got a spring in the bottom that runs from this top hole across to this top hole, I think. But you better check that for yourself. And these retaining clips here and here. I might be able to show, it's a bit dark around here, but I might be able to show the other side of this. So it runs from there, and that's the back of it's just there. I'll be able to make out just a small round thing there. So yeah, that's the part to this, those are the parts to this drum brake assembly. And the cable, with the cable, when you want to remove it, you have to get a clip. I'll show you a holder, I mean, but I'll show you that in a sec. But anyway, the route of the cable goes from behind. As I said, you just lock it in by pushing it through, and it's got spreading pins behind that lock out on the inside here. So it's got a retainer there, and it runs through that hole there, and then you bring it out, and there's a clip you've got to install to hold it at the other end. Okay, that's the front top spring. I'll try to demonstrate putting that on. So that clips in there, and it goes to that automatic adjuster there. Okay, the bottom spring has been put in the hole on the left hand side, and I'm going to need a stronger holder. Let's bring that closer. Okay, I've got a spacer. Just going to put the shoe in place, and I should have more luck this time. Okay, just double checking. The shoe's sitting in this activator at the top and the bottom there. The rear small spring's in place. The outside spring's in place. This is sitting properly in its notched out cap there to hold the shoe in place. So you can see there that there's a hole running that way, and this is twisted, pushed in and twisted and sitting properly. So yeah, everything's in place. Okay, so if you absolutely can't get the shoe drum back on, this is the spacer here. So you just wind that in. What I did was I made a sort of a note for myself, so I can see where it's got to be adjusted back to. But it's basically it self winds out as the drum gets loose. You can see that gap increasing there. And I know that it's got to go back to that that white mark there. So that makes it shorter, and I can get my I can get it back together. So how this the shoe retainer works is you've got your spring there. That goes around to the outside. And this is the cap that keeps it all together. Well, you just put that through like so, and then you turn this and it won't come off, and the spring's locked in. Okay, this far into the job, and you can see here that the it's in neutral, and the hub turns. Demonstrate that there. It's got very thick gearbox and diff oil in it. Okay, so it's all connected up. We've got a handbrake. So I'll leave the handbrake on. And you can see that that's now rigid. So I'll be filming from here to, I think the adjuster is about there underneath the car. So again, that slots in there. That's activating the arm for the shoe to lock onto the hub, and it's routed. I've made sure that it's routed properly, and I've been working ahead just to make sure that everything's going to plan. If you're not mechanically gifted or minded, if you don't think you can take on this job, I recommend not taking on the job. Remember, it is brake work and people's lives depend on it, and this is for entertainment purposes only, and you're better off taking it to a mechanic to get your cable replaced. Okay, with that said, we've got the cable running under the car. That's routed properly, and I'm just coming in underneath the cab. There's the front left wheel. So, okay. At this point here, the new cable is locked in there. The clip is in place. That's the clip to hold the front part of the cable. The cable runs down to this adjusting area here. There it is there. The cable's longer, so I've had to adjust it longer. You can see it was there, now it's down to there. So that's adjusted by pulling just arm tight the assembly here, and tightening up the nut to it, and locking with the front nut there to make sure it won't move. Okay, so now it's just a matter of it's got about 4 or 5 retainers. There's one there and down along the frame, doing them up, and that's the job finished. So just for perspective, that's the rear wheel there, just coming in and around about the exhaust pipe there. That's the hole it routed through, and you can see we've got one there just above the jack. I just pointed out there. So that's one, that's another, and there's one there. So at this point it's looking like only 3. I just double check that. There and there, yep, 3 plus the clip at the front. Okay, so that's it. Seems like a successful job. So one thing I'd like to point out is when you put the cable on, put the holders or the attachers of the cable to the frame, put them on first, and then adjust your slack in your handbrake. If you do it the other way around, you won't be actually able to get your cable brackets on, because the cable will be too short. So put the holders on the cable and then adjust your slack in the handbrake, and yeah, she's all good. I'll just demonstrate that now. So, got a handbrake. The car rolls now, so she's all good. So I hope this helps out. Yeah, please like and subscribe. And if it's uploaded, the work is a success.